Her millionaire husband avoided intimacy for 9 months, then demanded a baby, but she already knew his shocking secret plan. Hi, my beautiful family. I send you all my love, my prayers, and my blessings. Every story I create is not just a tale. It is a piece of my soul, shaped with endless care, sacrifice, and love for you. Today, I must open my heart. I carry guilt, because in the weight of pressure, and after losing our precious dog Hope, my mind was heavy, and I made mistakes in my last story. I felt ashamed because you trust me so deeply, and yet I stumbled like a little child. But you are my family, and family shares both the joy and the pain. That is why I tell you everything, because this bond we have is built on truth and love. Please stay with me till the very last second of every story. The endings are treasures, written only for you, my family who gives me strength to rise again. If your heart is true, write present. If your love is real, write, I am with Mr. Peter. And to my new family, if you ever doubt me, ask the old family. They will tell you how much love, honesty, and sacrifice I have given, not for fame, but for you. This is more than stories. This is us. This is love. This is family. Forever. The lipstick on Philippe's collar was the color of blood and betrayal. Laura Decker stood in the doorway of their bedroom, watching her husband of 1 year adjust his Italian silk tie in the mirror, completely oblivious to the damning evidence painted across his white shirt collar. Or perhaps he simply didn't care anymore. After 9 months of cold shoulders and separate bedrooms, perhaps he wanted her to see it. Don't wait up for me, Laura. Some of us have real work to do. His words cut through the air like shards of ice. Philippe Warin didn't even turn to look at her as he spoke, his reflection in the antique mirror showing a man of 35 with sharp cheekbones and eyes the color of winter steel. Eyes that once burned with passion when they looked at her. Now they held all the warmth of a mausoleum. Laura's fingers tightened on the doorframe, her knuckles white against the dark mahogany. But her voice remained steady, sweet even, as honey poured over broken glass. Of course, darling. Will you be at the Beaumont merger dinner, or should I make your excuses? I'll be there. He finally turned, his gaze sliding over her like she was furniture. Try not to embarrass me this time. The last thing I need is you fumbling through conversations about market acquisitions with the board members. 9 months ago, he had praised her intelligence, had hung on every word when she discussed her doctoral thesis in international economics. Now he acted as if she could barely string a coherent sentence together. Oh, darling. Laura moved forward, her silk robe whispering against her skin as she approached him. Her fingers reached for his collar, and she watched his entire body stiffen, not with desire, but with barely concealed revulsion. You must have brushed against someone at last night's gala. There's lipstick on your collar. She watched his face carefully, cataloguing the microsecond of panic before his expression smoothed into indifference. The Dubois woman air kisses everyone. You know how the French are. Madame Dubois was 73 years old and wore exclusively pink lipstick. This shade on Philippe's collar was crimson, the signature color of someone much younger. Someone like Celeste Moreau, the new head of acquisitions at Warren Industries, whose perfume Laura had been smelling on Philippe's clothes for the past 3 months. How silly of her, Laura said, dampening a tissue with her tongue and dabbing at the stain, feeling Philippe's jaw clench with disgust at her touch. There, all gone. We can't have you walking into the office looking anything less than perfect. Don't do that, he snapped, jerking away from her. It's revolting. Once, he had kissed her fingers when she touched his face. Once, he had pulled her against him in this very room and whispered that her touch was his salvation. The grandfather clock in the hallway struck 8, its resonance echoing through the vast mansion like a countdown to something inevitable. The Warren estate sprawled across 40 acres of manicured grounds in the city's most exclusive district, a monument to old money and older secrets. 23 rooms, each one colder than the last, since Philippe had moved his affections elsewhere. "Your mother called," Laura said, returning to safe, neutral territory. "She wants us at the family dinner on Sunday. She says it's important." Philippe's mother, Genevieve Warren, was a force of nature wrapped in Chanel suits and regulated by a heart that pumped liquid nitrogen instead of blood. She had made her disapproval of Laura clear from the beginning. Not quite the right pedigree, not quite the right connections, not quite enough. "We'll be there," Philippe said, checking his Patek Philippe watch, a wedding gift from Laura that he still wore, though she suspected it was more about the $30,000 price tag than sentiment. "She probably wants to lecture us about providing an heir again." The word "us" felt like a mockery when he hadn't touched her in 9 months. "Should I prepare for another discussion about my adequate breeding potential?" Laura asked, unable to keep the slight edge from her voice. Philippe's lips curved in what might have been a smile on anyone else's face. On his, it looked like a wound. "Just smile and nod, Laura. It's what you're good at." He moved past her toward the door, and she caught another whiff of that perfume, definitely Celeste's, French, vanilla and jasmine, with notes of ambition and home-wrecking. "Philippe," she called after him, and he paused at the doorway, not turning around. "I love you." The words hung in the air like a confession at a funeral. She watched his shoulders tense, watched his hand tighten on the doorframe until his knuckles matched hers in their whiteness. "I'll be late tonight," was all he said before disappearing down the hallway. Laura stood alone in their bedroom, her bedroom now, listening to his footsteps fade on the marble stairs. The space still held traces of him. His cologne on the unused pillows, his wedding photo on the nightstand. She noticed he'd removed hers from his office last month, his promises embedded in the very walls. She walked to the window that overlooked the gardens where they'd renewed their vows just 6 months ago, before everything changed, before the late nights became all nights, before the business trips that his secretary knew nothing about. Before Celeste Moreau strutted into their lives on 5-inch heels and decided she wanted what Laura had, or what Laura used to have. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, a text from Naomi, her best friend since college. "Breakfast at the Carlton? You sound like you need it." Laura smiled, the first genuine expression to cross her face all morning. Naomi had been there through everything, the whirlwind courtship, the fairy tale wedding, and now the nightmare aftermath. She was the only one who knew the truth about what was happening in the Warren mansion, but even Naomi didn't know everything. Laura moved to her walk-in closet, running her fingers along the designer dresses Philippe had once loved to see her in. Now she could wear a garbage bag and he wouldn't notice. She selected a simple black Givenchy dress, armor for the battles ahead. As she dressed, she thought about the manila folder hidden in the false bottom of her jewelry box. The one containing photographs of Philippe entering the Ritz-Carlton with Celeste last Tuesday at 2 p.m. when he was supposedly in a board meeting. The one with copies of text messages between them that she'd managed to retrieve through Philippe's carelessly logged-in laptop. "My darling Celeste," one had read, "just a few more months and we'll be free to be together. Laura is so pathetically devoted she'll never see the divorce coming." Pathetically devoted. Is that what he thought? Laura applied her lipstick carefully, a neutral rose, nothing like Celeste's vampire red, and studied her reflection. She saw a woman of 28 with skin the color of burnished bronze that Philippe had once written poetry about, eyes that held intelligence he now pretended didn't exist, and a smile that had forgotten how to reach those eyes. But behind that reflection, she saw something else. Something Philippe, in his arrogance and cruelty, had failed to notice. She saw a woman who had been underestimated her entire life, by teachers who thought she couldn't excel because of where she came from, by colleagues who assumed she was a diversity hire, by Genevieve who believed she was just another gold digger who had gotten lucky, and now by her husband, who thought she was too stupid to notice his affair and too weak to do anything about it if she did. The doorbell rang downstairs, probably the housekeeper arriving. The staff had been walking on eggshells lately, sensing the tension that permeated every corner of the mansion. Laura didn't blame them. The Warren estate had become a battlefield where all the weapons were hidden beneath perfect manners and designer clothes. She picked up her phone and responded to Naomi. "The Carlton at 10. And Naomi, we need to talk about the plan." Because Laura Decker had a plan, one that Philippe, in all his calculating coldness, would never see coming. He thought he was playing chess while she was playing checkers. He had no idea she had already captured his queen, positioned her rooks, and was 3 moves away from checkmate. The lipstick on his collar hadn't been a mistake he'd made. It had been a mistake he'd walked right into, and it was only the beginning. Chapter 2. Memories of Fire. 2 years ago, Philippe Warren had stood in the rain outside Laura's apartment at 3 in the morning, holding a bouquet of white roses that had long since been destroyed by the downpour. "I'll tear down the stars for you, Laura Decker," he had shouted up at her window, his usually perfect hair plastered to his forehead, his $10,000 suit ruined beyond salvation. "You're not just another woman, you're my salvation." Now, sitting across from Naomi at the Carlton's exclusive breakfast terrace, Laura could hardly reconcile that passionate man with the cold stranger who shared her home. The memory felt like something she'd watched in a movie, not something she'd lived. "He actually climbed the fire escape," Laura told Naomi, stirring her coffee absently. "In Armani. Can you imagine? The Philippe Warren, heir to a billion-dollar empire, scaling a rusty fire escape in the rain because I wouldn't answer his calls." Naomi leaned forward, her hazel eyes sharp with concern. "That was before you knew about his first marriage." "Ex-wife," Laura corrected automatically, though the distinction felt hollow. "And yes, before I knew about Vivienne Rousseau Warren, the first Mrs. Philippe Warren, the woman who had supposedly left him for another man, moving to Switzerland and cutting all ties. The divorce had been quick, quiet, with a massive settlement that bought her silence. Laura had only learned about Vivienne 6 months into her marriage, when Camille, Vivienne's sister, had approached her at a charity gala with too much champagne in her blood and too much truth on her tongue. "She didn't leave him for another man," Camille had whispered. "She left because she caught him with someone else, someone from his own family circle. The settlement was to keep her quiet about the family scandal." But that revelation had come later. First had come the courtship that had set the entire city ablaze with gossip. "Tell me again why you're staying with him," Naomi said, cutting through Laura's reverie with surgical precision. "Because from where I'm sitting, this isn't love anymore, it's war." Laura's smile turned sharp enough to cut glass. "Oh, but darling Naomi, in the Warren world, love and war have always been the same thing. The only difference is who survives." She pulled out her phone and showed Naomi a photo from their wedding album, Philippe lifting her in his arms, spinning her on the dance floor while 300 of the city's elite watched and whispered. His face was incandescent with joy, hers radiant with love. "Look at us," Laura said softly. "We were so beautiful in our naivety." The memory of that night crashed over her like a wave. It had started 3 months before that rain-soaked declaration. Laura had been presenting her research at the International Economic Summit, a brilliant analysis of emerging market volatility that had caught the attention of several Fortune 500 CEOs. Philippe had been in the audience, supposedly scouting for new talent for Warren Industries. Your theory on currency manipulation in developing nations, he had said, approaching her after her presentation with a confidence that bordered on arrogance. It's wrong. She had raised an eyebrow, unimpressed by his expensive suit and perfect smile. Is that so, Mr. Warren, Philippe Warren? And yes, it's wrong because it doesn't account for shadow banking systems in Southeast Asia. They had argued for 3 hours. Through the cocktail reception, through dinner, through the after-party, their debate had raged on, growing more heated and more personal with every passing minute. By midnight, they were no longer discussing economics. By 1 in the morning, Philippe had whispered, "You're the most brilliant woman I've ever met, and if you give me one chance, I'll prove I'm worthy of that mind." Philippe pursued me like a man possessed, Laura continued, sipping her coffee. Do you remember when Matthias tried to ask me out? Naomi laughed, though it held no humor. Your husband nearly destroyed his own cousin over that. It had been at Genevieve's birthday party. Matthias Warren, Philippe's younger cousin, had always been the family's black sheep. Too artistic, too sensitive, too interested in spending the family money rather than making it. He'd taken one look at Laura in her emerald dress and decided to make his move. You're far too interesting for my cousin, Matthias had said, offering her champagne with a smile that had probably worked on countless women. Philippe collects beautiful things, but he doesn't know how to appreciate them. Philippe had appeared as if summoned by the mere thought of another man near Laura. His hand had wrapped around her waist, possessive and protective all at once. Matthias, he had said, his voice deadly calm, I believe Aunt Marguerite was looking for you. Something about the trust fund situation we discussed. The threat had been clear. Back off, or face financial consequences. You're mine, Philippe had whispered against her ear after Matthias retreated, his breath hot against her skin. Only mine. I'd burn the world before letting you go. At the time, it had seemed romantic. Now Laura recognized it for what it was, the first sign of a man who saw people as possessions. But God, Naomi, the way he loved me, Laura said, and for a moment her carefully constructed armor cracked. Or at least, the way he pretended to. Their secret signals across crowded rooms. Him loosening his tie meant he wanted to leave. Her touching her earring meant she loved him. The way he'd cancel million-dollar meetings just to have lunch with her because she'd mentioned craving Thai food. The weekend he'd flown her to Paris because she'd never seen the Louvre. I want to give you the world, he had said, standing with her in front of the Mona Lisa. Every beautiful thing that exists should be yours. When did it change? Naomi asked gently. Laura knew exactly when. 6 months ago, the night of their vow renewal. Genevieve had insisted on it, a public display to quiet the rumors that had already begun circulating about trouble in paradise. Philippe had been perfect that night. He'd held her close, whispered the right words, played the devoted husband to perfection. But when they'd returned home, when she'd reached for him in their bed, he'd turned away. I'm tired, Laura. Those 3 words had started the avalanche that buried their marriage. Celeste Moreau joined the company 6 months ago, Laura said, connecting dots that painted an ugly picture. Young, ambitious, beautiful in that obvious way that makes insecure men feel powerful. And Philippe is nothing if not insecure, Naomi observed. It was true, though few would guess it. Behind the Warren name, the inherited wealth, the carefully cultivated image, Philippe was a man desperate to prove he was more than his father's son. Laurent, his younger brother, had the natural business acumen. Isabelle, his sister, had the social grace. Philippe had the name and the pressure that came with it. He told me once, Laura said, remembering a vulnerable moment that now felt like another lifetime, that marrying me was the first thing he'd ever done that wasn't part of his mother's plan, that I was his rebellion, his choice, his freedom. And then Genevieve got in his head. Naomi said. The mother-in-law from hell had never hidden her disapproval. At their engagement party, she'd pulled Laura aside with a smile that could freeze helium. You're very pretty, dear, and I'm sure you're quite clever in your own way. But Warren wives aren't just ornaments. They're dynasty builders. Can you give my son a dynasty? The pressure for an heir had started immediately after the wedding. Every family dinner became an interrogation about Laura's fertility. Every society event included whispers about when the Warren heir would arrive. But here's what Philippe doesn't know, Laura said, pulling out a second phone from her purse, one Naomi had never seen before. I've been documenting everything, every late night, every lie, every text message he thought he deleted. She showed Naomi a screenshot of Philippe's credit card statement. Dinner for two at Le Bernardin when he was supposedly at a client meeting, jewelry purchases that never made it to Laura, hotel charges at the Four Seasons on afternoons he claimed to be in conference calls. How did you... His passwords are pathetically predictable. His mother's birthday for his banking, our wedding date for his email, though I'm sure he'll change that soon, and Warren 2020 for his phone backup. Laura, this is dangerous. If Philippe finds out... He won't. Laura's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Because Philippe, like his mother, like everyone in that toxic family, believes I'm too stupid to fight back. They see my skin color, my background, my degrees from public universities instead of the Ivy League, and they assume I'm grateful just to be allowed in their presence. Her phone, her real phone, buzzed. A text from Philippe. Don't wait up. Client dinner, running late. Laura showed it to Naomi, then pulled up the Find My Phone app on the secret device. He's at Celeste's apartment, has been for the past 2 hours. The bastard, Naomi breathed. The predictable bastard, Laura corrected. Every Tuesday and Thursday, like clockwork. So arrogant, he doesn't even vary the pattern. She pulled out another folder, this one labeled Insurance Policy. It contained something that made Naomi's eyes widen. Is that the prenup Philippe made me sign? Yes, but more importantly, the part his lawyer forgot to redact properly, the infidelity clause that goes both ways. If he cheats, I get everything, not just a settlement, everything. How did they miss that? They didn't miss it. They assumed I'd never be able to prove infidelity. After all, Philippe is too smart to get caught. Laura's smile was sharp. Except he's not smart. He's just rich. There's a difference. Laura closed the phone and slipped it back into her purse. But I'm not ready to play that card yet. First, I need to find out what they're really planning. What do you mean? Philippe doesn't just want a divorce, Naomi. That would be too simple, too expensive. He wants me to give him a child first, then leave me with nothing. I overheard him on a call with Bernard last week. Something about securing the succession before making any moves. He wants to use you as an incubator? Essentially. Get me pregnant, then suddenly discover some reason to divorce me that invalidates the prenup. Probably claim I was unfaithful. But you haven't... Of course not. But that won't stop them from manufacturing evidence. Laura stood, leaving money on the table. I have to go. Lunch with Genevieve and her sister Marguerite. They want to discuss my duties as a Warren wife. Laura, Naomi called after her, be careful. These people, Laura said, turning back with fire in her eyes that Philippe used to claim he loved, have no idea who they married into this family. They wanted a queen who would give them heirs and stay silent. Instead, they got a warrior who's about to turn their own game against them. As she walked away, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was from Laurent, Philippe's brother. We need to talk. It's about Philippe and Celeste, and something you need to know about their relationship. Laura smiled. Another piece on the chessboard, moving exactly where she needed it to be. Philippe thought he was playing a simple game of betrayal and divorce. He had no idea she was playing for so much more. Chapter 3. The Sweetest Days. Sometimes I wake up terrified this is all a dream. Felipe had whispered those words at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday, exactly 3 months after their wedding. Laura had been feigning sleep, savoring the weight of his arm across her waist, the warmth of his breath against her neck. In the darkness of their bedroom, with moonlight painting silver streaks across Egyptian cotton sheets, Philippe Warin had sounded vulnerable as a lost child. "Then never wake up, my love," Laura had whispered back, turning in his arms to face him. His eyes in the darkness had been vulnerable in a way daylight never allowed. This was the Philippe only she knew, the one who suffered from insomnia, who sometimes stared at the ceiling reciting stock prices to calm his anxiety, who had panic attacks that he hid from everyone, including his family. Especially his family. Now, sitting across from Genevieve and Marguerite at the Warren Estate's sun-drenched conservatory, Laura wondered if those vulnerable moments had been real, or just another performance in Philippe's elaborate theatre of manipulation. "More tea, dear?" Genevieve asked, her tone suggesting that declining would be a social crime punishable by exile. "Thank you, Mother Genevieve," Laura replied, watching the older woman's lips purse at the familial address she'd never quite approved of. Marguerite, Philippe's aunt, watched the exchange with the hungry eyes of a vulture circling dying prey. She lived for family drama, fed on it, like others, fed on oxygen. "Isabelle tells me Philippe has been working late quite often," Marguerite said, stirring sugar into her tea with deliberate slowness. "Such dedication to the company. His father would be proud." Felipe's father had died of a heart attack 5 years ago, allegedly from overwork. Though Laura had heard whispers at family gatherings, quickly hushed when she approached, about the convenient timing of his death, just after signing over major control to Genevieve. "Yes, he's very dedicated," Laura agreed, thinking of last night's dedication to Celeste at her apartment. "I remember when Philippe first brought you home," Genevieve said suddenly, her pale blue eyes fixed on Laura with laser intensity. It was quite the surprise. Laura remembered too. It had been 4 months into their relationship, and Philippe had been like a teenager bringing home his first girlfriend, nervous, excited, desperate for approval he'd never receive. The family dinner had been a massacre disguised as hospitality. "She's studying economics," Philippe had announced proudly, his hand finding Laura's under the table. "She's brilliant. Show them your paper on emerging markets, darling." "Perhaps after dessert," Genevieve had said, her tone making it clear that after dessert meant never. "Tell us about your family, Laura. What does your father do?" "He was a teacher," Laura had replied, chin raised. "History, at a public school. He passed when I was 16. The silence that followed could have frozen hell, but Philippe had squeezed her hand, and later, in the garden, he'd pulled her behind the rose bushes his grandmother had planted and kissed her with desperate passion. "They don't understand," he'd said against her lips. "They think love is about mergers and bloodlines and trust funds. But this, us, this is real. You make me real, Laura." That night, they'd made love in his childhood bedroom while his family slept down the hall, and Philippe had whispered promises into her skin like prayers. "I've never seen my brother this happy," Isabelle had told Laura the next morning, finding her alone in the breakfast room. Back then, Isabelle had been an ally, a friend even. "You're good for him. He's different with you, softer, more human." The sweet days had been intoxicating in their perfection. Philippe would send her flowers every Monday, not roses or generic bouquets, but specific flowers with meaning. Purple iris for wisdom when she defended her dissertation, sunflowers for adoration when she won the Economics Excellence Award, white carnations for pure love when she agreed to marry him. "Do you know what today is?" he'd ask at random moments, and she'd panic, thinking she'd forgotten something important. Tuesday? She'd guess, and he'd laugh, that rich, warm sound that had first made her heart skip. It's been exactly 247 days since I met you. 247 days since my life actually began. He kept a photo of her in his wallet. Not one of the professional engagement photos, but a candid shot Naomi had taken at a barbecue. Laura was laughing at something, head thrown back, completely unguarded. Felipe would pull it out during board meetings, his secretary Miranda had told her, just to look at it between hostile takeovers and million-dollar decisions. "Mr. Warren, the Tokyo call," Miranda would prompt. "5 more seconds," he'd say, staring at the photo like it contained the secrets of the universe. There was the night he'd recreated their first date in their living room when she'd gotten food poisoning and couldn't leave the house, complete with the same wine, the same music, even wearing the same tie he'd worn that night. "If you can't go to the memory comes to you," he'd said, spinning her slowly to Etta James while she tried not to cry. Or the morning she'd mentioned, offhandedly, that she'd never learned to ski because her family couldn't afford vacations. That weekend, he'd flown her to Aspen, but instead of the luxury resort, he'd found a small, family-run lodge with an instructor who specialized in beginners. "I don't want you to learn in front of people who might judge you," he'd explained. "I want you to fall and laugh and not worry about anything except being happy." She'd fallen 37 times that first day. Philippe had counted, cheering for every small victory, never once showing the impatience that characterized his business dealings. "Laura?" Genevieve's sharp voice cut through the memories. "I asked if you've been to see Dr. Maurier." Dr. Maurier. The fertility specialist Genevieve had been pushing since the wedding. "Not yet," Laura replied smoothly. "Philippe and I want to wait until—" "Waiting is a luxury Warren wives don't have," Marguerite interrupted. "Look what happened with Vivienne. Waited too long and Philippe had to find someone else." Laura's fingers tightened on her teacup. "I thought Vivienne left him." The two older women exchanged glances. "Of course she did," Genevieve said curtly, "for some Swiss banker. But if she'd given Philippe a child first, perhaps he would have fought harder to keep her." "How romantic," Laura said dryly. "Fighting for your wife because she's proven her breeding capability." "Don't be crude," Genevieve snapped. "You knew what this marriage entailed. The Warren name comes with expectations." Her phone buzzed. Laurent's name flashed on the screen. "Excuse me," Laura said, standing. "I should take this." She stepped onto the terrace, answering the call. "Laura, can you meet me?" Laurent's voice was tense. "Not at the office. Somewhere private." "Laurent, what's wrong?" "It's about Philippe and Celeste. I found something you need to see. Can you meet me at the Carlton Hotel bar at 4? "What kind of something?" "The kind that explains why Philippe changed 6 months ago. The kind that—" "Laura, just meet me, please." Laura's blood chilled. "I'll be there." She ended the call and turned to find Isabelle standing in the doorway, her face unreadable. "That was Laurent," Isabelle said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "Be careful, Laura. My brothers, they're not what they seem, neither of them." "What are you saying?" Isabelle stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I'm saying that in this family, love is just another word for ownership. Philippe learned that from our mother. And Laurent has his own agenda." She pressed something into Laura's hand, a small USB drive. "Philippe's emails from 6 months ago, the ones he thought he deleted. You'll want to see them before you meet Laurent." "Isabelle, why are you helping me?" "Because once upon a time I was you, young, in love with a Warren man, believing I could change him." Her smile was bitter. "Marcus Warren, our cousin. I was 17, he was 25. The family covered it up, sent me to boarding school in England. The baby was adopted out before I even held her." Laura gasped. "Isabelle, I had no idea." "No one does. It's the Warren way. Bury the scandals, pay for silence, pretend perfection." She walked away, then paused. Check the emails, Laura, then decide who you can trust. Spoiler alert, it's no one with the Warren name. Back in the conservatory, Genevieve and Marguerite were deep in conversation, their voices low and urgent. Laura caught fragments. Can't wait much longer. The family needs an heir, just like with Vivienne. I should go, Laura announced, gathering her purse. Philippe will be home early tonight. It was a lie. Philippe was never home early anymore. Of course, dear, Genevieve said, that cold smile playing at her lips. Do give my son our love. And Laura, do think about Dr. Maurier. Time is not on your side. As Laura drove away from the estate, she pulled over at the first rest stop and plugged in the USB drive to her laptop. What she found made her hands shake. Emails between Philippe and Celeste dating back 8 months, 2 months before the supposed start of their affair. But these weren't love letters, they were business propositions. The arrangement we discussed is acceptable, one from Philippe read. Once Laura provides an heir, you'll be publicly acknowledged as my partner. The divorce will be clean, irreconcilable differences. She gets a modest settlement, we get the child and the company merger your father promised. Celeste's father, Robert Moreau, CEO of Moreau International, Warren Industries' biggest competitor. Another email, this one from Celeste. My father insists on a biological heir to seal the merger. Your wife's background is actually perfect. No powerful family to fight the custody arrangement. Play the loving husband until she's pregnant, then we can proceed. Laura's phone rang. Laurent again. Where are you? He asked. I'm at the Carlton. I'm coming, Laura said, her voice steady despite the rage building in her chest. And Laurent? Whatever you're going to tell me, I already know Philippe and Celeste's relationship is a business arrangement. Silence. Then, you know? Then you know it's worse than just an affair. Laura, they're planning to use me as a surrogate for their merger baby. Yes, I know. She started the car. The question is, Laurent, what's your role in all this? Because Isabelle seems to think you have your own agenda. Laurent's laugh was bitter. Isabelle's right. I do have an agenda. It's called stopping my brother from destroying another woman the way he destroyed Vivienne, and the woman before her, and the woman before that. There were others. Philippe has been perfecting this game since college, Laura. You're just the first one he actually married. The others were paid off or disappeared quietly. But you're different. You're stronger. And that's why I think you can beat him at his own game. Laura pulled into the Carlton's parking garage. I'm here. Good, Laurent said. Because what I'm about to show you changes everything. Celeste Moreau isn't who anyone thinks she is. And when you find out the truth, you'll understand why Philippe never stood a chance. None of us did. Laura walked into the bar, her mind racing. The sweet days of her marriage were truly dead, buried under conspiracies and business deals. But from their ashes, something new was rising. Something Philippe would never see coming. Chapter 4. Love's Last Dance. The Ambassador's Ball was where Philadelphia's elite came to pretend they were European royalty for one night, and Philippe Warren had just asked his wife to dance for the first time in 6 months. Dance with me like we used to, he whispered against Laura's ear, his hand extended like an olive branch wrapped in thorns. The entire ballroom seemed to hold its breath. 200 of the city's most powerful people watched as Laura Decker stood frozen, champagne flute in hand, staring at her husband as if he were a stranger wearing Philippe's skin. Which, in a way, he was. His tuxedo was impeccable, custom Brioni, of course. His hair was styled exactly the way she'd always loved it, slightly tousled, as if he'd just run his fingers through it. Even his cologne was the one she'd bought him for their anniversary. Tom Ford Oud Wood, the scent that used to make her weak. "Philippe," she said carefully, aware of the audience, aware of his mother watching from her table with calculating eyes. "Are you feeling well?" He laughed, and for a moment, just a moment, it sounded genuine. Can't a man dance with his beautiful wife without an interrogation? The words "beautiful wife" sat strange in the air between them. He hadn't called her beautiful in months. He'd barely called her anything except Laura, said in that flat, emotionless tone that made her name sound like a burden. She set down her champagne and placed her hand in his, feeling the familiar callus on his thumb from years of signing documents. The orchestra, as if sensing drama, began playing La Vie en Rose, the song from their wedding. Philippe pulled her onto the dance floor with the confidence of a man who had never been rejected in his life. His hand found her waist, and she fought not to flinch at the contact. When was the last time he'd touched her intentionally? Not brushing past her in the hallway, not accidental contact at family dinners, but purposeful, deliberate touch. "You look beautiful tonight," he murmured, and Laura nearly stumbled. She was wearing the red Valentino gown he'd bought her in Paris, the one he'd specifically requested she wear tonight. She'd assumed it was about appearances, the perfect wife in the perfect dress. Now, with his eyes actually focused on her for the first time in months, she wasn't sure of anything. "Thank you," she managed, letting him lead her through the familiar steps. Their bodies remembered this dance, even if their hearts had forgotten the music. "Do you remember our wedding?" Philippe asked suddenly, his voice strange, almost desperate. "You cried during the vows." "Happy tears," Laura said, though now she wondered if some part of her had been crying for what was to come. "I meant every word," he said, spinning her out and pulling her back against his chest. "Every single word, Laura." The intensity in his voice made her look up, meeting his steel-grey eyes. What she saw there made her breath catch. For just a moment, the ice had melted, and underneath was something raw, something that looked almost like, "God, Laura, what have I been doing?" The words rushed out of him like water through a broken dam. "These past months I've been so lost, so stupid. You're everything, you've always been everything." People were definitely staring now. Genevieve had half risen from her chair. Across the room, Laura spotted Celeste in a black dress that was slightly too revealing for the occasion, her face twisted with something between rage and panic. "Philippe, people are watching," Laura warned, but his grip on her tightened. "Let them watch. Let them all see that I love my wife, that I've been a fool, but I love her." He dipped her suddenly, dramatically, the way he had at their wedding reception. The room actually applauded, thinking they were witnessing a romantic moment between the Warren heir and his wife. They had no idea they were watching a performance, though Laura wasn't sure who was performing for whom anymore. When he pulled her back up, his face was inches from hers. "Come home with me tonight," he whispered. "Really come home. To our bed. Let me show you how sorry I am." "You're drunk," Laura said, though she could smell nothing but his cologne. "I'm not drunk. I'm awake. For the first time in months, I'm actually awake." His hand came up to cup her face, thumb brushing her cheekbone with heartbreaking tenderness. "I've been having nightmares, Laura. Dreams where I lose you, where I wake up and you're gone, and I realize too late what I've thrown away." The song ended, but Philippe didn't let go. They stood in the middle of the dance floor, locked in an embrace that felt like both a beginning and an ending. Then Laura remembered the emails, the business arrangement, the plan to use her for a baby and discard her. This passionate display was just another manipulation. "Mr. Warren," a voice cut through the moment. It was Bernard, the family lawyer, looking uncomfortable. "Your mother requests your presence." Philippe's jaw clenched. "Tell my mother I'm busy." "Philippe," Bernard insisted, and something in his tone made Philippe step back from Laura. "Don't go anywhere," Philippe told her, pressing a kiss to her hand that sent whispers through the crowd. "Please, just wait for me." He walked away, leaving Laura standing alone on the dance floor, her hand still warm from his lips. She made her way to the bar, needing something stronger than champagne. Well, that was quite the show. Laura turned to find Laurent standing beside her, looking amused and concerned in equal measure. "Your brother is full of surprises tonight," she said carefully. "My brother is full of something," Laurent agreed, ordering whiskey for both of them. "But I'm not sure it's surprises." He pulled out his phone, showing her a text from Philippe sent 3 hours ago. "Operation Reconciliation is a go. She won't know what hit her." Laura's heart, which had been tentatively hoping despite everything, turned to stone. "It's part of the plan," Laurent explained quietly. "Celeste's father is getting impatient. He wants the merger finalized, but it's contingent on a Warren heir. Philippe needs you to get pregnant first. Bernard advised him that a public reconciliation, followed by a pregnancy, followed by a tragic discovery of irreconcilable differences, would play better in court. And the performance tonight, publicly demonstrating the marriage is solid, making sure everyone sees him as the devoted husband. So when you're pregnant and he discovers you've been unfaithful—" "What?" Laura's voice was sharp. "They're going to frame you, Laura. Make it look like you've been having an affair. Celeste has already hired someone to play the part. An actor named David Chen. He's been following you for weeks, getting photographed near you at coffee shops, the gym. They'll claim you've been seeing him secretly." Laura took the whiskey and downed it in one burn. "Why are you telling me this?" Laurent was quiet for a moment, studying his own drink. "Because what Philippe did to Vivienne was wrong. She wasn't having an affair with that Swiss banker. Philippe paid him to seduce her, to create evidence of infidelity. She fell for it, and Philippe used it to destroy her in the divorce. And you're developing a conscience now." "I'm developing something," Laurent said, looking at her with eyes that were Philippe's, but warmer. "Maybe it's a conscience. Maybe it's just exhaustion from watching my brother destroy everything he touches, or maybe—" He paused. "Maybe it's because you deserve better than any of us. Isabel warned me about you, said you have your own agenda. Isabel's smart. I do have an agenda." He smiled sadly. "I want to take over Warren Industries. Philippe's destroying it with his personal dramas and bad decisions. But I want to earn it, not steal it. And I definitely don't want to destroy innocent women in the process." Across the room, Philippe was in heated discussion with his mother and Bernard. Celeste had joined them, standing too close to Philippe, her hand occasionally touching his arm, with casual intimacy that made Laura's stomach turn. "He'll come back to you tonight," Laurent warned. "He'll be passionate, romantic, everything you fell in love with. He's good at that, becoming exactly what people need him to be. It's his gift and his curse." "Was any of it real?" Laura asked, not sure she wanted the answer. "In the beginning." Laurent was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, the first 3 months maybe. Before Mother got her claws in. Before Celeste's father made his offer. Philippe was actually happy. Genuinely, stupidly happy. But happiness doesn't pay for empires, and Philippe chose the empire. The orchestra started playing again, another waltz, and couples began returning to the dance floor. Laura watched them, all these people playing their parts in the grand theatre of high society. "There you are." Philippe had returned, his face flushed, eyes bright with something that might have been passion, but could just as easily have been desperation. "Dance with me again," he said, reaching for her hand. "I'm tired," Laura said, stepping back from his touch. "Please." The single word cracked his perfect facade like a hammer to glass. "Laura, please, one more dance. Let me hold you for one more song." Laurent excused himself with a meaningful look at Laura. She understood the warning. Be careful. He's most dangerous when he seems vulnerable. But she let Philippe lead her back to the dance floor anyway. Let him hold her close, his chin resting on top of her head the way it used to when they slow danced in their kitchen at midnight. "I love you," he whispered, and it sounded so real, so broken, that for a moment she almost believed him. "Whatever happens, remember that I loved you. Maybe not the right way, maybe not enough, but I loved you." "Philippe, what are you—" "Shh. Just dance with me. Pretend for 3 more minutes that we're those people who got married in the rain because they couldn't wait another day. Pretend we're still those people who believed love could conquer anything." They swayed together, and Laura felt something wet on her neck. Tears. Philippe Warin was crying. When the song ended, Philippe stepped back, his mask firmly back in place. "I have an early meeting tomorrow," he said formally. "I'll have the driver take you home." He walked away without looking back, leaving Laura on the dance floor for the second time that night. But this time she saw him stop by Celeste's table, saw the woman's triumphant smile, saw the way Philippe's shoulders sagged as if under an enormous weight. "Last night was a mistake. Don't read into it," he would tell her in the morning, just as Laurent had predicted. But standing there in her red dress, watching her husband leave with another woman while 200 people pretended not to notice, Laura made a decision. Philippe wanted to play games? Fine. But he had no idea that while he was playing checkers, she had already set up the chessboard. Tomorrow she would meet with David Chen, the actor they'd hired to frame her. Tomorrow she would turn their weapon against them. Tomorrow the real game would begin. But tonight she would go home alone to their empty bed and mourn the last dance of a marriage that had been dead long before the music stopped. Chapter 5. The Demand. "It's time you earned your place in this family. I need an heir." Philippe stood in the doorway of Laura's bedroom, because that's what it was now, her bedroom, at 7 in the morning, delivering this pronouncement like he was announcing quarterly earnings to the board. Laura set down her coffee cup slowly, deliberately, letting the china clink against the saucer in the silence that followed. She was still in her silk robe, her hair wrapped in a towel, completely unprepared for this conversation, but somehow not surprised by it. "Good morning to you too, Philippe," she said, her voice honey-sweet with poison underneath. "How was your business trip to Chicago?" He hadn't been to Chicago. He'd been at the Four Seasons downtown with Celeste for 3 days, but they both knew that, so why pretend? "Laura, I'm serious." He entered the room uninvited, his presence filling the space like smoke from a fire she couldn't escape. "We need to discuss this." "Discuss what exactly?" "Your sudden desire for fatherhood after months of treating me like I have the plague." Philippe's jaw tightened. He was wearing his grey Armani suit, the one that meant serious business, the one he wore to hostile takeovers and firings. "The board is asking questions. Mother is losing patience. We've been married over a year. And you haven't touched me in 9 months. The words came out sharper than she intended, but she was tired of dancing around the truth. That's going to change. The casual arrogance of it, the assumption that she would simply comply, made her want to throw her coffee cup at his perfectly styled head. "Is it?" she asked instead, standing and moving to her vanity, forcing him to address her back. "How romantic. Should I mark my calendar? Schedule the conception between your merger meetings and golf games?" She saw his reflection in the mirror, saw the flash of something, guilt, anger, cross his face before he schooled it back to cold professionalism. "Don't be dramatic, Laura." "Dramatic." She whirled to face him. "You ignore me for months, parade your mistress around town like a trophy, and now you demand I bear your child. And somehow I'm being dramatic." I don't have a mistress. The lie hung in the air so bold, so breathtaking in its audacity, that Laura actually laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. Celeste Moreau, 31, MBA from Wharton, hired 8 months ago as head of acquisitions. Favorite restaurant, Le Bernardin. Favorite hotel, the Four Seasons. Favorite position, enough. Philippe's composure cracked, his face flushing red. Whatever you think you know. What I know, Laura interrupted, standing to face him fully, is that you're here because Mommy Dearest commanded it. What did Genevieve threaten this time? To cut your access to the trust fund, to give Laurent more control of the company. His silence was answer enough. A Warren heir must come from proper stock. Laura quoted his mother's words from yesterday's tea. At least you're adequate. Laura, but here's what puzzles me, Philippe. She moved closer to him, close enough to smell his cologne mixed with something else. Celeste's perfume, clinging to him like evidence he didn't bother to hide. Why not have a baby with Celeste? She's everything your mother wants. Right pedigree, right education, right connections. Stop it. Oh, did I hit a nerve? Laura smiled, sharp as a blade. Let me guess. The merger with her father's company requires a legitimate Warren heir, not a bastard, but a child from your legal marriage. That's why you need me. Philippe grabbed her wrist, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to warn. You're still my wife. On paper, Laura said, not pulling away, but we both know that's all I am to you now, a contract, a clause, a means to an end. They stood frozen like that, his hand on her wrist, her eyes boring into his, the air between them electric with anger and something else, something that felt dangerously like the passion they used to share. A knock on the door shattered the moment. Come in, Laura called, pulling away from Philippe. It was Miranda, Philippe's secretary, looking uncomfortable. Mr. Warren, your mother is here. She's waiting in the formal living room with Mr. Bernard and Miss Moreau. Laura saw Philippe close his eyes briefly, saw his shoulders tense. Celeste is here? Laura asked innocently. How interesting. A family meeting about family planning. How modern. Laura, Philippe started, but she was already moving past him. No, let's not keep them waiting. I'm dying to hear this proposal. The formal living room was a stage set for power plays, all Persian rugs and oil paintings of dead Warren patriarchs. Genevieve sat in the high-backed chair that might as well have been a throne, with Bernard to her right and Celeste to her left, looking like a war council. Laura, darling, Genevieve said, the endearment sounding like an insult. How lovely that you could join us. I live here, Laura reminded her, taking a seat across from them, forcing Philippe to choose a side. He remained standing, caught between them like a man on trial. We need to discuss the future of the Warren line, Genevieve began without preamble. It's been over a year since the wedding. The board is concerned. Investors like stability, and stability means succession. How fascinating, Laura said. And what does Miss Moreau have to do with Warren succession? Is she here to take notes? Celeste's perfectly painted lips curved in a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I'm here as Philippe's business partner. The future of the company affects all major stakeholders. Business partner, Laura repeated. Is that what we're calling it now? Laura, Philippe warned. No, please, I'm genuinely curious. Laura leaned forward. Tell me, Celeste, in your professional opinion, how many stakeholder meetings require overnight stays at the Four Seasons? The room went arctic. Bernard cleared his throat. Perhaps we should focus on the matter at hand. Mrs. Warren, the family requires assurance that an heir will be produced within the year. Requires? Laura raised an eyebrow. Or what? You'll replace me like a faulty appliance? Don't be crude, Genevieve snapped. You knew what this marriage entailed. The Warren name comes with responsibilities. Yes, I remember the sales pitch, Laura said. Love, honor and obey the dynasty. Except Philippe seems to have forgotten the love and honor parts. The marriage can be dissolved, Bernard said quietly, if it fails to produce the agreed-upon results. There it was, the threat wrapped in legalese. The prenuptial agreement is quite clear, he continued. Failure to produce an heir within 2 years is grounds for annulment with limited financial compensation. Unless, Celeste added, her voice silk over steel, there's evidence of infidelity on the wife's part. Then the compensation is 0. Laura looked at Felipe, who had the decency to avoid her gaze. I see, Laura said slowly. So I produce an heir or I'm discarded. But if I refuse, you'll manufacture evidence of an affair to leave me with nothing. No one's manufacturing anything, Genevieve said. We're simply clarifying the terms. The terms, Laura repeated. She stood, smoothing her robe. Well then, let me clarify my terms. I'll give you your heir, Philippe, but I have conditions. Philippe looked up sharply. Conditions. First, we go to couples counseling, weekly, with the therapist of my choosing. That's ridiculous, Genevieve scoffed. Second, Philippe moves back into our bedroom. If you want a baby, you'll have to at least pretend to be a husband. Celeste's face darkened. Philippe doesn't need to. Third, Laura continued as if she hadn't spoken. Celeste is no longer welcome at family functions or private dinners. Business meetings only, during business hours. You can't dictate, Celeste started. And finally, Laura said, looking directly at Philippe, when I get pregnant, the baby will have my last name as well. Warren Decker, non-negotiable. Absolutely not, Genevieve stood. No Warren heir has ever... Then I suppose you won't have a Warren heir at all, Laura said calmly. Your choice. Accept my terms or explain to the board why the succession they're so concerned about won't be happening. She moved toward the door, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. I want it in writing. All of it. Bernard, draw up the papers. Philippe, you have 24 hours to decide. And if I refuse? Philippe asked, his voice strained. Laura smiled, thinking of the photos hidden in her jewelry box. The evidence Miranda had been secretly copying, the meeting she had scheduled with David Chen tomorrow. Then I suppose we'll see who has more to lose in a very public, very messy divorce. Your mother's social standing won't survive the scandal I can create. Trust me on that. She left them in stunned silence, but she could hear the explosion of voices as soon as she reached the stairs. In her room, she pulled out her phone and texted Naomi, "The war has officially begun." Then she opened her laptop and began typing an email to Robert Moreau, Celeste's father, with the subject line, "Information about your daughter you should know." She didn't send it, not yet, but having it ready, knowing she could destroy their merger with one click, made her feel something she hadn't felt in months. Powerful. Her phone buzzed. A text from Philippe. "We need to talk, alone, tonight." Another buzz. This one from an unknown number. "This is David Chen. I think we should meet. I have information about why they hired me to follow you. A friend." The game had just changed completely, and Laura was finally holding all the cards. Chapter 6. The Discovery. David Chen was nothing like Laura had expected. The actor they'd hired to frame her sat across from her in a discreet cafe downtown, genuine remorse etched across his features as he pushed a thick manila envelope across the marble table. "Everything's in there," he said quietly, his voice carrying the weight of guilt. "The contract they made me sign, the staged photos they wanted, the timeline for our supposed affair. I'm an actor, Mrs. Warren, not a homewrecker." Laura opened the envelope, her hand steady despite the rage building as she saw the elaborate plan. Photos of her digitally manipulated to show intimate moments with David, a scripted timeline of their relationship, even fake love letters in what was supposedly her handwriting. "Why are you showing me this?" she asked. Because when I took the job, they told me you were a gold digger who trapped their son. Then I did my research, found out about your doctorate, your charity work, how you've been treated." He shook his head. "My mother went through something similar. Rich family, treated like an incubator. I can't be part of this." "How much did they pay you?" 50,000. I'm returning it." He pulled out his phone, showing her the bank transfer. "But there's something else you should know. I wasn't the only actor they hired." Laura's blood chilled. "What do you mean?" "Celeste Moreau. She's not who she claims to be." David pulled out another folder. "My friend works in casting. He recognized her from auditions 5 years ago. Her real name is Céline Martin. She's an actress from Montreal. Failed actress, actually. Never booked anything significant until suddenly she shows up with an MBA from Wharton that nobody remembers her earning." Laura studied the headshots, the audition tapes David had somehow procured. It was definitely Celeste, but younger, hungrier, desperate in the way only failed artists can be. "She's playing a role," Laura whispered. "This whole time, she's been playing a role." "Gets better," David said. "That merger with Moreau International." "Robert Moreau has no daughter. He has 3 sons, all married, all working in the company. I called their HR department pretending to verify Celeste's employment history. They've never heard of her." Laura's mind raced. "Then who's behind this? Who hired her?" "That's where I hit a wall. The money trail goes through shell companies, but whoever it is, they've been planning this for a long time." Laura's phone buzzed. A text from Laurent. "Emergency. Philippe's in the hospital. Heart episode. Come quickly." She stood abruptly. "I have to go. David, thank you. Can I keep these documents?" "They're yours. And Mrs. Warren, be careful. Anyone who can fabricate an entire identity for Celeste has serious resources." Laura rushed to the hospital, her mind spinning with this new information. She found Laurent in the waiting room, his face grave. What happened? Stress-induced arrhythmia. He collapsed during a board meeting when they announced they were considering a vote of no confidence. Laurent ran his hand through his hair. "The company's imploding, Laura. The fake merger, Celeste's lies, it's all coming out." "You knew?" Laura asked. "About Celeste?" "I suspected. Nothing about her added up. But Philippe was so desperate to prove himself, to show Mother he could land a massive merger." Laurent shook his head. He wanted to believe it was real. Genevieve appeared in the doorway, her usually perfect composure cracked. "You," she pointed at Laura. "This is your fault. If you'd just given him a child." "If I'd given him a child, I'd be discarded by now," Laura shot back. "Just like Vivienne. Vivienne was weak. Vivienne was smart. She got out before you could destroy her completely." "Enough," Laurent intervened. "Philippe's asking for Laura." Laura walked into the hospital room to find Philippe hooked to monitors, looking smaller and more fragile than she'd ever seen him. His eyes opened when she entered. "Laura," his voice was weak, "I know about Celeste. Laurent told me. She was never—" "I know," Laura said softly, sitting beside his bed. "She's an actress. The whole merger was fake." Philippe's eyes filled with tears. "I threw away our marriage for a lie. I threw away everything real for something that never existed." "Philippe, no, let me finish." He struggled to sit up. "I need to tell you something about why I changed, why I pushed you away." Laura waited. 6 months ago, Mother told me something. About my father. He didn't die of a heart attack from overwork. He died of a heart attack in his mistress's bed. 23 years old, Laura. His mistress was 23. Younger than Isabel. Laura gasped. Mother covered it up, paid off the girl, created the overwork story. But she told me that day, told me I was becoming just like him, weak, led by emotion instead of logic. She said falling in love with you was proof I'd inherited his weakness. So you decided to prove her wrong by having an affair. Laura's voice was sharp. I decided to prove I could be the son she wanted. Cold, calculating, focused on the empire. He laughed bitterly. Instead, I proved I'm exactly what she said, weak and stupid. I fell for Celeste's act completely. We all did, Laura said, though it was little comfort. No, you didn't. You saw through it. You've seen through everything from the beginning, haven't you? Laura was quiet for a moment. I saw a man destroying himself to please a mother who would never be satisfied. I saw a marriage dying because you chose fear over love. I did love you, Philippe said urgently. I do love you. These 3 days with Celeste at the hotel, nothing happened, Laura. I couldn't. Every time she touched me, all I could think about was you, about what I was throwing away. Philippe, I'm getting a divorce, he said suddenly. Not from you, from them, from Mother, from the company, from all of it. Laurent can have it. I want to try to earn you back, if you'll let me. Before Laura could respond, the door burst open. Celeste, or Céline, stood there, her perfect facade finally cracked. You ruined everything, she screamed at Laura. 2 years I've been playing this role. 2 years of pretending to be interested in that pathetic man's business talk, of letting him pore at me, of pretending his mother's approval meant anything. Who hired you? Laura demanded. Celeste laughed, wild and bitter. You really don't know? It was Vivienne Rousseau. She hired me to destroy the Warren family from the inside, to seduce Philippe, fake a merger, and bring down the whole empire. The room went silent. She wanted revenge, Celeste continued, for what they did to her. And I needed the money. 500,000 to play the role of a lifetime, to become Celeste Moreau and destroy Philippe Warren. But why involve me? Laura asked. I never did anything to Vivienne. You were collateral damage, just like I was, just like everyone who gets close to this toxic family. Celeste looked at Philippe with disgust. You want to know the funny part? I actually started feeling sorry for you, both of you, watching you destroy each other while Vivienne pulled the strings from Switzerland. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Philippe? That heart episode you just had? Might want to check what's been in your coffee lately. Vivienne has friends everywhere, even in your own house. She walked out, leaving chaos in her wake. Philippe looked at Laura, his face pale. The coffee. You said you'd been pouring yours out. You knew? I suspected something was wrong with it. I didn't know what. Laura stood. I need to make some calls. If Vivienne's been orchestrating all of this. Laura, Philippe called out. What are you going to do? She looked back at him, lying broken in his hospital bed, finally seeing the truth of how thoroughly they'd all been played. I'm going to end this, she said. All of it. The games, the manipulation, the revenge cycles, it ends now. Her phone rang. Unknown international number. Hello, Laura, a woman's voice said. This is Vivienne Rousseau. I think it's time we met, don't you? Woman to woman, survivor to survivor. Where? The Carlton Hotel, presidential suite. Come alone. We have much to discuss about our mutual problem. Philippe's not the problem anymore, Vivienne. No, Vivienne agreed. But Genevieve still is. And I have a proposition that might interest you, one that ensures we both get what we want. Laura looked back at Philippe, then at Laurent standing in the doorway, then made her decision. I'll be there in an hour. Wonderful. Oh, and Laura, bring the prenup. You're going to want to see what was hidden in the appendix. Page 247, subsection 3A. Philippe never read that far, but I did. Years ago. The line went dead. Laura's hands shook as she pulled up the prenup on her phone, scrolling to page 247. What she found there changed everything. Chapter 7. Playing the Game. Of course, darling, a baby would complete us. Laura delivered the line with practiced perfection to Philippe 2 days after their hospital conversation, sitting in their dining room as if the recent revelations hadn't shattered their entire world. She had met with Vivian, learned the full truth, and now she was orchestrating an entirely different symphony. Philippe studied her with unveiled suspicion, still weak from his hospital stay but his mind sharp as ever. "You've changed your mind." His voice held confusion and hope in equal measure. "I've had time to think," Laura said, pouring him tea, regular tea, nothing added. "We've all been victims here, Philippe, of your mother, of Vivian's revenge, of our own fears. Maybe a child would give us something real to build on. Even after everything, after Celeste, Céline, whoever she was." "Especially after that," Laura said. "We were both played, both manipulated. But underneath all the lies, there was something real between us once. Wasn't there?" Philippe reached across the table, taking her hand. "The first 3 months were the only time in my life I was truly happy." "Then let's try to find that again." What Philippe didn't know was that Laura had already put everything in motion. The prenup's hidden clause that Vivian had pointed out, it gave Laura full control of Warren Industries if Philippe was deemed mentally incompetent or physically incapacitated for more than 30 days. His hospital stay, properly documented, had already triggered the clause. Miranda entered, no longer as a secretary, but as Laura's personal attorney. Her law degree had been gathering dust for 15 years while she served coffee to the Warrens. "Mrs. Warren, the board is ready for you," Miranda announced. Philippe frowned. "What board meeting? I wasn't informed." "You were incapacitated, darling," Laura said gently. "Someone had to handle the crisis. The fake merger, the stock price collapse, Celeste's fraud. The board asked me to step in temporarily." "They asked you?" "Well, Vivian suggested it, actually. She's joining us by video link. She owns more shares than anyone realized. She never sold them in the divorce, just hid them in shell companies." Philippe's face went pale. "Vivian's involved in the company?" "Vivian's about to save the company," Laura corrected. "Her connections in Switzerland, my economic expertise, and surprisingly, Laurent's operational knowledge. We're restructuring everything." "We?" The dining room doors opened. Laurent walked in, followed by Isabel, then Matthias, and finally on the screen Miranda held, Vivienne appeared, elegant and composed from her Swiss chateau. "Hello, Philippe," Vivienne said, her voice carrying no anger, only exhaustion. "You look terrible." "Vivienne, Save it. I'm not here for apologies. I'm here for business." She looked at Laura. "Tell him." Laura stood, walking to the head of the table. "Genevieve has been embezzling from the company for years, small amounts, but consistent. The evidence was in the files you thought were destroyed. Miranda saved everything." "That's impossible," Philippe protested. "Your mother has been supporting someone," Laurent said. "A woman in France, sending monthly payments for 32 years. Marguerite found out last week," Isabel added. "The woman is Genevieve's daughter, your older sister, Philippe, the one she had at 17 and gave away to protect her reputation." Philippe's world tilted. "I have another sister." "Had," Vivian corrected from the screen. "She died 5 years ago, but her daughter, your niece, is very much alive. And Genevieve's been paying for her silence." "Her name is Marie Delacroix," Laura said softly. 25 years old, art student in Paris. She looks exactly like you, Philippe." Philippe stood abruptly, swaying. "This is too much. I can't." "Sit down," Laura commanded, and surprisingly, he did. "We're not done." She pulled out a folder. "This is Genevieve's resignation from the board. She signed it an hour ago when we presented her with the embezzlement evidence. She's agreed to step away permanently in exchange for avoiding prosecution. You forced my mother out. We gave her a choice, Vivian said. Prison or exile. She chose exile. She's moving to her sister's estate in Connecticut. You're free, Philippe. Free? He laughed bitterly. I'm destroyed. No mother, no company control, no marriage. You have a marriage if you want it, Laura interrupted. But it will be on my terms. Philippe looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in months. What terms? Equal partnership, complete honesty, couples therapy, and yes, children. But they'll be raised differently. No Warren legacy of manipulation and cruelty. They'll know love without conditions. And if I refuse, then we divorce. I take my controlling share of the company. Yes, I have it now. Check with Bernard, and you get a generous settlement. Enough to start over anywhere you want. Philippe was quiet for a long moment. Then, what about Vivienne? What does she want? Vivienne smiled on the screen. I already got what I wanted. Genevieve destroyed, the truth revealed, and interestingly, a new friend in Laura. We're going into business together, a consulting firm for women dealing with difficult divorces from powerful families. You're going into business with my ex-wife? Philippe asked Laura incredulously. Your ex-wife is brilliant, Laura said. She survived you, rebuilt her life, and orchestrated a revenge plot that almost worked perfectly. Imagine what she could do with that energy channeled positively. Plus, Vivian added, I'm tired of being angry. Revenge is exhausting. I'd rather build something than destroy it. Laurent cleared his throat. There's one more thing, Philippe. The family vote. We've decided to split the company. You can keep the traditional manufacturing side if you want it. But the tech division, the innovations department, the future, that goes to Laura and her team. Her team? Isabel's heading marketing. Matthias is taking over creative. Miranda's our chief legal counsel. Even Marguerite's agreed to handle charitable foundations, properly this time. Philippe looked around the room at his family, all aligned against him. No, not against him. Without him. They'd moved on while he was still stuck in the old patterns. And Mother agreed to all this? Mother has no choice, Isabel said firmly. We have enough evidence of her manipulations to destroy her social standing completely. Her silence is part of the deal. Philippe turned to Laura. You planned all this? From the beginning? No, Laura admitted. In the beginning, I just wanted to be loved. Then I wanted revenge. Then I wanted to survive. Now I want to build something better. The question is, do you want to be part of it? As what? Your defeated husband. As my partner, Laura said. Equal, real. No games, no manipulation. Think of it as a merger. The first honest one the Warren family has ever attempted. Philippe stood slowly, walking to the window. Outside, the garden where they'd renewed their vows 6 months ago was in full bloom. The baby, he said quietly. You really want to have a child, even after everything? I'm already pregnant, Laura announced, and the room went silent. 6 weeks. Not from you, we haven't been together. IVF with a donor. Philippe spun around. What? I wanted a child, Philippe, but I wanted one free from all this poison. So I took matters into my own hands. You're having someone else's baby? I'm having my baby, Laura corrected. But if you want to be its father, really be a father, not just a name on a birth certificate, then we can do this together. Your choice. Philippe looked at Vivienne on the screen. What would you do? Vivienne's expression softened. I'd take the second chance, Philippe. God knows we all deserve one. Even you. Especially you, Laurent added. You're not a bad man, brother. You're just a man who let fear turn him bad. There's a difference. Philippe walked back to Laura, standing before her with none of his usual arrogance. If I agree to all of it, The therapy, the partnership, raising your child. What guarantee do I have that you won't destroy me later? None, Laura said, honestly. Just like I have no guarantee you won't revert to your old ways. That's what trust is, Felipe. A leap of faith without a safety net. That's terrifying. That's love, Laura corrected. Real love. Not the possessive obsession you called love before. Felipe was quiet for so long that everyone started to shift uncomfortably. Finally, he spoke. Okay, okay, okay to all of it. The therapy, the partnership, the baby. He took a deep breath. I want to be better. I want to be the man you thought you married. Laura studied his face, looking for deception. She found only exhaustion and something that might have been hope. Then we start now, she said. First therapy session is tomorrow. First board meeting with the new structure is Monday. And Felipe, you're moving back to our bedroom tonight. Separate beds for now, but same room. We rebuild from proximity. What about trust? Trust is earned, Laura said. Day by day, choice by choice. You started earning it the moment you said okay. Vivian cleared her throat on screen. Well, this is touching, but I have a flight to catch. Laura, I'll see you in Zurich next month for the firm launch. I'll be there. Philippe, Vivian said, looking at him one last time. Don't waste this chance. You won't get another. The screen went dark. One by one, the family filed out, until it was just Laura and Philippe in the dining room where everything had started that morning. You played us all, Philippe said, but there was admiration in his voice. From the very beginning. No, Laura said. I just refuse to be played. There's a difference. Chapter 8. The web tightens. 3 weeks into their reconciliation attempt, Philippe discovered the full extent of Laura's strategic brilliance when Genevieve launched her final desperate assault. She's contesting everything, Bernard announced, bursting into the study where Laura, Philippe, and the newly formed board were meeting. Your mother has hired Rothschild and Associates. She's claiming mental duress, insisting she was coerced into signing under false pretenses. Laura didn't even look up from her papers. Let her. Let her. Philippe stood abruptly. Rothschild is the best firm in the country. They've never lost a corporate case. They've never faced me, Laura said calmly. She pulled out her phone and made a call. Marie? Yes, it's time. Can you fly in tomorrow? Bring everything. Philippe frowned. Marie? You mean your niece, Genevieve's granddaughter, the one she's been paying to stay quiet? Laura smiled. Genevieve doesn't know that Marie and I have been in contact for 6 months. 6 months? But you only learned about her? I learned about her existence recently, but I've known Genevieve had a secret she was paying to hide for much longer. Miranda's been tracking the payments. I just had to find who was receiving them. The door opened and Céline walked in, causing everyone to tense. What is she doing here? Philippe demanded. I invited her, Laura said. Céline has agreed to testify about Vivienne's revenge plot in exchange for immunity from fraud charges. You're protecting her? Laurent asked incredulously. I'm using her, Laura corrected. Just like everyone else in this room has been used at some point. The difference is, I'm transparent about it. Céline placed a recorder on the table. 3 hours of conversations with Genevieve. She didn't know I was recording, but she admitted everything. The embezzlement, forcing Philippe into arranged relationships, even some interesting details about her husband's death. Philippe went pale. She didn't kill him? Number. But she did withhold his heart medication during his final attack. She watched him die, Philippe said it herself on tape. The room went silent. Philippe sank into his chair, his face in his hands. Why? He whispered. Why would she do that? Because he was going to divorce her, Céline said. He'd found out about her daughter, about the embezzlement. He was going to expose everything, so she let him die and called it a heart attack from overwork. Laura stood, moving to Philippe's side. Despite everything, she placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "I'm sorry you had to learn this way." "Are you?" Felipe looked up at her. "Or is this just another move in your game?" "Both," Laura admitted. "I am sorry you're hurting, but I also needed you to understand who your mother really is, what she's capable of." Miranda cleared her throat. "There's more. Genevieve's been in contact with someone else, someone who wants to destroy the new company structure." She handed Laura a printed email exchange. Laura's face darkened as she read. "Robert Moreau, Celeste's supposed father. He's real?" Philippe asked. "Oh, he's real, and he's furious about being implicated in the fake merger scheme. He's threatening to sue for defamation unless—" Laura trailed off. "Unless what?" "Unless I agree to marry his actual son. Consolidate the companies through a real marriage alliance." Philippe stood so fast his chair fell over. "What?" "Calm down. I'm not marrying anyone. I'm already married, remember?" Laura's tone was dry. "But this shows Genevieve's desperation. She's trying to force a hostile takeover using Moreau's resources." "So what do we do?" Laura smiled, and it was the smile of a predator. "We let her think she's winning. Céline, you'll go back to Geneviève. Tell her I'm considering Moreau's offer. Tell her I'm tired of Philippe, that the reconciliation is failing." "You want me to double-cross her?" "I want you to triple-cross her. She thinks you're still Vivienne's agent. Let her believe you've switched sides for money. Meanwhile, you'll be feeding her false information I provide." "This is insane," Philippe said. "You're juggling too many deceptions." "No," Laura said. "I'm simplifying. Every player thinks they're using me, but they're all using each other. Geneviève, Moreau, even Vivienne initially. They're so busy fighting among themselves they don't see the real move." "Which is," Laura pulled out a document, "the shareholders' meeting next week. While Geneviève is focused on her legal battle and Moreau's proposal, we're voting on the complete restructuring, splitting Warren Industries into 3 separate companies, one for Philippe, one for me, one for the family trust managed by Laurent and Isabelle. Mother will never agree. Mother won't have a vote. Her shares were frozen the moment she contested the resignation. Corporate bylaws, Section 47B. Bernard missed it because he was too focused on the criminal implications." Bernard, who had been quietly taking notes, looked up sharply. That's brilliant, and completely legal." "Everything I've done has been legal," Laura said. "Unethical perhaps, manipulative certainly, but legal. That's the difference between me and Geneviève." Her phone rang. She looked at the caller ID and smiled. "Speaking of which, hello, Geneviève." She put it on speaker. "Laura, dear." Genevieve's voice was ice, pretending to be honey. "I think we should talk. Woman to woman." "We are talking. In person. Alone. I have a proposition that might interest you." "Does it involve Robert Moreau's son? Because I've already heard that one." Silence. Then, "How did you—" "Never mind. Yes, it involves that. But also something else. Something about your baby." Laura's hand went instinctively to her growing bump. "What about my baby?" "I know who the father is. The sperm donor. It wasn't as anonymous as you think. Would you like Philippe to know? Would you like everyone to know?" The room tensed. Philippe looked at Laura with concern. Laura laughed. "Oh, Geneviève, you think you've found leverage. Go ahead. Tell everyone." The donor was Laurent's college roommate, Marcus Chen, the man Philippe nearly expelled for cheating, the man whose family Philippe destroyed in a business deal 5 years ago. Philippe's face went white. "Marcus Chen? You're carrying Marcus Chen's baby?" "I'm carrying my baby," Laura said firmly. "The donor's identity is irrelevant." "But you knew?" Philippe asked. You knew who it was? I knew. I chose him specifically. Brilliant geneticist, clean medical history, and yes, someone with a grudge against the Warren family. I thought it was poetic justice. You're insane, Genevieve hissed through the phone. No, I'm thorough. Marcus doesn't even know. It was an old donation from years ago, perfectly legal. But the fact that you somehow got that information means you've been hacking medical records. That's a federal crime, Genevieve. You can't prove. I can. Miranda's been monitoring your digital footprint. Every hack, every illegal search, every bribe to get information. You've been so desperate to find dirt on me. You've created a prosecutable trail of crimes. This is entrapment. This is consequences, Laura corrected. You have two choices, Genevieve. Back down now, accept your exile, and live comfortably on your hidden assets, or continue fighting and lose everything, including your freedom. Long silence. Then, you're just like me, you know. Calculating, cold, ruthless. No, Laura said. I'm what you could have been if you'd used your intelligence for building instead of destroying. Goodbye, Genevieve. She hung up. The room was silent until Isabel spoke. She's not wrong, though. You have become like her in some ways. Laura nodded. I have, and it terrifies me. That's why the therapy, that's why the restructuring. I need to step back before I become the monster I'm fighting. So what happens now? Laurent asked. Now we vote. All in favor of the restructuring. Every hand raised, including, surprisingly, Philippe's. You're voting for this? Laura asked him. I'm voting for a future where our child, your child, doesn't inherit this poison, Philippe said. I'm voting for the chance to be better. The door burst open. A young woman stood there, dark-haired and striking, with Philippe's exact eyes. I'm Marie Delacroix, she announced in accented English, and I have something you all need to hear. She pulled out a tablet, and Genevieve's voice filled the room, not from a phone call, but from a recording made years ago. If Philippe ever becomes weak like his father, if he ever chooses love over the family, I'll destroy him myself. I'll take everything, just like I took everything from his father. The Warren name belongs to me, not to weak men who think with their hearts. Marie looked at Philippe. Your mother said this to my mother, the daughter she abandoned. She's been planning to destroy you since before you were born, the moment you showed any independence. Philippe stood slowly, walking to Marie. You're my niece. I am. And I'm here to testify against our grandmother. She destroyed my mother with her payments and threats. She won't destroy anyone else. Laura watched as Philippe embraced his niece, as the family began to reshape itself around truth instead of lies. Her phone buzzed with a text from Vivienne. Watching the news. You did it. You actually did it. Another text, this one from Naomi. You've won. How does it feel? Laura looked around the room, at Philippe holding his newly discovered niece, at Laurent and Isabelle planning the company's future, at Miranda finally taking her rightful place, at Céline considering her own redemption. She typed back, It feels like the beginning, not the end. Because the web hadn't just tightened around their enemies, it had become something else entirely, a net to catch them all when they fell, and they were all falling into something that might actually be a family. Not the Warren family of old, built on lies and manipulation, but something new, something real, something worth saving. Chapter 9. The storm builds. The Warren estate had never witnessed a family summit quite like this one. 6 months pregnant, Laura commanded the grand dining room with an authority that made the portraits of dead patriarchs seem to shrink in their gilded frames. Every player in this complex drama had gathered, not just Warrens by blood, but all those bound by survival. Philippe sat to her right, still her husband in name and increasingly in truth. Their therapy sessions had unearthed pain but also possibility. To her left sat Vivienne, who had flown in from Switzerland for this moment. The former Mrs. Warren and the current Mrs. Warren united in something beyond revenge or survival. "Thank you all for coming," Laura began, her hand resting on her prominent bump. "I know some of you travelled far for this." She looked at Marie Delacroix, Philippe's niece, who had become an unexpected ally, at Matthias, who had transformed from bitter cousin to capable CEO, at Isabelle, who had found her voice after years of silence, at Laurent, holding his son Thomas, the child Vivienne had fought to reclaim from the adoptive family. "The fertility clinic appointment is tomorrow," Philippe suddenly announced, his voice cutting through the room. "No more delays." Everyone turned to stare at him. Laurent actually laughed. "Brother, are you having an episode? Laura's already 6 months pregnant." Philippa blinked, confusion crossing his face. "What? No, she needs to... We need an heir." "Philippe," Laura said gently, recognizing the signs. The stress had been triggering these moments of confusion, where he'd slipped back to earlier points in their story. The doctors said it was psychological, not physical, his mind trying to return to moments where different choices might have been made. "I'm already pregnant, Philippe. Remember? We're having a daughter." The fog cleared from his eyes. Yes, of course, I'm sorry. Sometimes It's okay," Laura said, and meant it. These episodes had humanized Philippe in ways years of marriage hadn't. Seeing him vulnerable, confused, struggling, it had stripped away the last of his armor. Genevieve's lawyer cleared his throat. "If we could proceed. My client is participating via video link from Connecticut per the restraining order." The large screen flickered to life. Genevieve appeared, still regal despite her fall, sitting in what was clearly a modest room, a far cry from her previous luxury. "Mother," Philippe said quietly. "Philippe." Her voice was cold. "And the rest of my ungrateful family." "We're not here to rehash grievances," Laura said firmly. "We're here to finalize the separation of assets and establish the future structure of what was once Warren Industries. To the future Warren heir." Delphine, cousin Delphine, who'd flown in from Paris, raised her glass mockingly. "Oh wait, there won't be one, will there? Just Laura's bastard." "Delphine," Matthias warned. "Finally earning your keep, Laura," Delphine continued, her sneer a perfect echo of the old family cruelty. But instead of anger, Laura smiled. "I live to serve the Warren legacy," she said, her tone making it clear she was mocking the very idea. "Enough," Grandfather Armand's voice boomed through another screen. At 92, he remained sharp, watching everything from his care facility. "Delphine, you're here on sufferance. One more outburst and your trust fund, what's left of it, disappears entirely." "This is about the future," Laura continued. "Warren Industries as it existed is dead. In its place, we have 3 new entities. Philippe will run Warren Manufacturing, focusing on the traditional business lines." Philippe nodded. He'd found unexpected satisfaction in returning to the actual work of building things rather than building schemes. "I'll head Decker Innovations, taking the tech and development divisions into the future. And Laurent will manage Warren Rousseau Capital, the investment arm." "Warren Rousseau." Genevieve's voice was sharp. "You're putting her name on my family's company?" "It's not your family anymore, Mother," Philippe said quietly. "You saw to that when you chose power over people." "Besides," Vivienne added with a slight smile, "I'm the second largest shareholder now. I've been buying stock during the chaos, quite affordably, I might add." The room erupted in surprised murmurs. Even Laura looked impressed. "You've been planning this?" Laura asked. "We've all been planning," Vivienne said. "The difference is my plans were about rebuilding, not destroying, though I admit the destroying part was satisfying while it lasted." Marie stood up. "Speaking of plans, Grand-Mère, would you like to explain the trust fund in my mother's name?" The one you've been embezzling from since her death. Genevieve's face went white on the screen. I don't know what you're talking about. 100 million euros, Marie continued. Left to my mother by her adoptive father. You convinced her you were investing it. Instead, you've been using it to fund your schemes. You can't prove. I can, Bernard interrupted, surprising everyone. The family lawyer had been so quiet they'd almost forgotten he was there. I've been keeping records, every transaction, every forged signature. I thought I was protecting the family. I was really just enabling a criminal. Bernard, Genevieve gasped, you work for me. I worked for the Warren family, Bernard corrected, and I've realized that you were never really part of it. You were a parasite, feeding off it. Laura pulled out a thick folder. This is a settlement offer, Genevieve. Sign over all remaining assets, accept permanent exile, and Marie won't press criminal charges. And if I refuse, then you go to prison, Philippe said bluntly, for embezzlement, fraud, and, yes, mother, for Dad's death. We know you withheld his medication. The room went silent. On screen, Genevieve seemed to age 10 years in 10 seconds. He was going to leave me, she whispered. After everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd built, he was going to leave me for a 23-year-old nobody. So you let him die, Philippe said, his voice hollow. I let nature take its course. You murdered him, Isabel said fiercely, just like you murdered our souls, piece by piece, year by year. I made you strong. You made us monsters, Laurent said, but we're choosing to be human again. Laura stood, walking closer to the screen. Sign the papers, Genevieve. It's over. You think you've won, Genevieve said, looking directly at Laura. But you've become just like me. Manipulative, calculating, cold. That baby you're carrying will grow up with a mother who destroyed a family. No, Laura said firmly. She'll grow up with a mother who saved one, who took something poisonous and made it productive, who chose building over burning. We'll see, Genevieve said ominously. Philippe is weak. He'll betray you again. It's in his nature. Maybe, Laura agreed, surprising everyone. But that's the difference between us, Genevieve. I'm not trying to control him. I'm giving him the chance to choose who he wants to be. She turned to Philippe. Tell her. Philippe stood, moving to stand beside Laura. Mother, I'm adopting Laura's baby. Legally. She'll be my daughter in every way that matters. And we're trying for another child. Together. The real way this time. You're staying with her, after everything. I'm choosing her. Every day I'm choosing her, and therapy and work, and being better than what you tried to make me. It won't last, Genevieve said bitterly. Maybe not, Laura said. But if it fails, it'll be honest failure, not the elaborate deception you called a marriage. Genevieve's lawyer whispered something to her off-screen. She nodded slowly. Send the papers, she said finally. I'll sign. The screen went dark. The room exhaled collectively. So it's really over? Matthias asked. The war is, Laura said. The rebuilding is just beginning. Vivian stood. I should go. My flight. Stay, Laura said suddenly. Stay for dinner. All of you. Even you, Delphine, if you can manage to be civil. Why? Vivian asked. Because we're family now. Not the kind bound by blood or marriage certificates, but by survival. We've all been through the Warren crucible. We might as well break bread together. It was strange, sitting around the same table where so many power plays had unfolded. Philippe carved the roast, while Laurent poured wine, juice for Laura. Isabelle and Marie chatted in rapid French. Matthias and Vivienne discovered a shared love of art. This is weird, Thomas, Laurent's son announced with 3-year-old honesty. Yes, Laura agreed, ruffling his hair. But good weird. Philippe reached over, taking her hand. Are we really going to be okay? I don't know, Laura said honestly. but we're going to try, really try this time. The baby, Marcus Chen's baby. Our baby, Laura corrected. She's ours. Biology is just details. I love you, Philippe said suddenly. Not the desperate, possessive way I did before, but real love, the kind that wants you to be happy even if it's not with me. I know, Laura said. That's why I'm still here. Delphine, who'd been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke. You know what? You did good, Laura. You played the game better than any of us. That's the thing, Laura said, looking around the table at this strange, fractured, healing family. I stopped playing games. That's how I won. As dinner continued, as laughter gradually replaced tension, as Thomas fell asleep in Laurent's arms and Marie showed Isabelle photos from art school, Laura felt something she hadn't expected. Peace. Not the peace of victory, but the peace of acceptance. They were all broken in different ways, but broken things, when put together right, could make something beautiful. A mosaic instead of a mirror. A family instead of a dynasty. The storm hadn't just built, it had passed, leaving something unexpected in its wake. Chapter 10. The Queen's Gambit. The baby came during a board meeting. Laura's water broke while she was presenting quarterly projections for Deca Innovations, and she simply looked down at the puddle, said, "Well, that's inconvenient timing," and continued her presentation for another 2 minutes before Philippe physically carried her to the car. 8 hours later, Marie Hope Warren Decker entered the world screaming, a warrior from her first breath. She's perfect, Philippe whispered, holding his daughter, not biologically his, but his in every way that mattered. She looks like you. She looks like herself, Laura corrected, exhausted but radiant, unique, unbound by anyone's expectations. The door opened, and unexpected visitors filed in. Vivienne carrying flowers, Laurent with Thomas, Isabelle with tears in her eyes, even Matthias, awkward but present. We wanted to be here, Vivienne said simply. Family should be together for the big moments. Family. The word that had once been a weapon in the Warren household had become something else. Something chosen rather than imposed. Philippe's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his face darkened. What is it? Laura asked. Mother. She's contesting the adoption. Says I have no right to claim a child that isn't mine by blood. Laura laughed, actually laughed hours after giving birth. Let her. She has no standing, no power, no leverage. She could make it public. The scandal. What scandal? That we're raising a child born from IVF? That you're choosing to be a father rather than just a sperm donor? That's not scandal, Philippe. That's evolution. Vivienne cleared her throat. Actually, about Genevieve. There's something you should know. She's sick, really sick. The doctors give her maybe 6 months. The room went quiet. Cancer? Isabelle asked. Karma, Vivienne said dryly. But yes, cancer, stage 4. She's been hiding it for months. Philippe sank into the chair beside Laura's bed. She's dying? She's been dying since the day she chose power over love, Laurent said philosophically. The cancer's just making it literal. We should go see her, Philippe said suddenly. No, Laura said firmly. She made her choices. She can die with them. Laura, no, Philippe. This is exactly the kind of manipulation she excels at. Dying doesn't erase what she did. It doesn't entitle her to forgiveness she hasn't earned. She's still my mother. Biologically. But Marie here, Laura looked at the baby in her arms, will never know that kind of motherhood, the kind that comes with conditions and cruelty. A knock at the door interrupted them. Miranda entered, now 7 months pregnant herself, a surprise romance with a doctor she'd met during the company restructuring. Sorry to interrupt, but there's something you need to see. She handed Laura a tablet showing a news headline, Warren Matriarch reveals all-in-tell-all book deal. She's writing a book, Felipe said incredulously. Published posthumously, Miranda explained. She's already shopping it to publishers. The Real War in Women, How I Built an Empire and Lost a Family. Laura started laughing again, harder this time, until tears streamed down her face. She's unbelievable, she gasped. Even dying, she's still trying to control the narrative. We could stop it, Bernard offered from the doorway. He'd been reinstated as family counsel after his cooperation. Legal injunction, defamation suits. No, Laura said, wiping her eyes. Let her write it. Let her tell her version. We'll tell ours. Ours? Laura looked at Vivienne. Remember that business we talked about? The consulting firm for women dealing with difficult divorces? Let's expand it. Include a publishing arm. Tell the real stories of the women behind powerful men. Starting with us, Vivienne asked. Starting with us. The truth about the Warren women, all of us, including Marie's mother, including Isabel's story, including the truth about Genevieve herself. She'll hate that, Felipe said. Good, Laura said simply. She spent her life trying to control everyone else's story. It's time she learned she only ever controlled her own. Baby Marie started crying, and Philippe instinctively reached for her. Laura watched him settle their daughter with practiced ease. They'd been practicing on Thomas during visits. You know what's funny, Philippe said, rocking Marie gently. I spent so much time obsessing over having an heir, over continuing the Warren line, but now, holding her, I don't care about any of that. I just want her to be happy. That's growth, Laura said softly. That's love, Philippe corrected. Real love. The kind I should have given you from the start. You're giving it now, Laura said. That's what matters. Another knock. This time it was a courier with a letter. Laura recognized the handwriting immediately, Genevieve's. She opened it, reading aloud. Laura, you won. I admit it. You played the game better than I ever could. You saw all the angles, anticipated every move, and defeated me completely. But here's what you don't understand yet. Winning the game means you're still playing it. Every manipulation you executed, every scheme you orchestrated, it's in you now. You've become what you fought against. Watch Philippe. He'll betray you again. It's in his nature, just as manipulation is now in yours. The only difference between us is time. Enjoy your victory. It will turn to ash, just as mine did. Genevieve. Laura crumpled the letter slowly, then looked at everyone in the room. Her strange, chosen family. She's wrong, Matthias said. You're nothing like her. She's right, Laura said, surprising them. I did become like her. I manipulated, schemed, and destroyed. The difference is I'm choosing to stop. She never could. And if she's right about me, Philippe asked quietly, if I do betray you again? Laura looked at him holding their daughter, at the man who'd been broken and was slowly rebuilding himself. Then we'll deal with it, she said simply. Together or apart, but honestly. No more games. No more games, Philippe agreed. Vivienne stood. I should go. Let you rest. Vivienne, Laura called out. Thank you for everything, even the revenge plot. Vivienne smiled. It brought us all here, didn't it? Sometimes you have to destroy something completely to rebuild it right. One by one they filed out, leaving just Philippe, Laura, and baby Marie. What happens now? Philippe asked. Now we live, Laura said. Day by day, choice by choice. We raise our daughter. We run our companies. We go to therapy. We see if love can grow from honesty instead of deception. And if it can't, then we'll have tried. Really tried. That's more than most get. Felipe leaned over and kissed her forehead. Not passionate, not desperate, just tender. I love you, he said. The real you. The woman who outsmarted an entire dynasty. The one who chose mercy when she held all the weapons. The one who's giving me a chance I haven't earned. You love me now. Laura said carefully, her exhaustion making her words deliberate. But love isn't a feeling, Philippe. It's a choice, made every day. Can you choose me when the romance fades, when the baby won't stop crying, when the company struggles and life isn't a fairy tale? I don't know, Philippe admitted, the honesty costing him. But I want to try, really try this time. Then that's our beginning, Laura said. Not an ending. A beginning. As she drifted off to sleep, exhausted from labor and emotion, Laura thought about Genevieve's letter, about winning and losing, about becoming what you fight against, about the price of victory. Maybe Genevieve was right. Maybe she had become a master manipulator. Maybe Philippe would betray her again. Maybe this fragile peace they'd built would shatter. Or maybe, just maybe, they'd all learned something from the ruins of the Warren Empire. That power without love was emptiness. That manipulation might win games, but it couldn't win hearts. That sometimes the greatest victory was choosing not to play at all. The Queen's Gambit in chess was a famous opening where you sacrificed your queen's pawn to gain control of the center of the board. Laura had sacrificed more than that. She'd sacrificed her innocence, her trust, pieces of her soul. But she'd gained something too. A family, strange and broken but real. A daughter who would grow up free. A husband who was learning to be human. A future that wasn't predetermined by the past. Your move, she whispered to the universe, holding her daughter close. The game wasn't over. It never really was. But for the first time, Laura wasn't playing to win. She was playing to live, and that made all the difference.